The harder you grind, the bigger you dream. The harder you grind, the bigger you dream. The harder you grind, the bigger you dream. I said the harder you grind, the bigger you dream. I said you're up and I'm up. Y'all now tuned into the Grind Hard Dream Big Show. The harder you grind, the bigger you dream. I got a special guest in the building. Go ahead and introduce yourself to the people.
Hi, I'm DJ NahFr, aka Ayana.
So how you feeling today?
I'm feeling good. How about you?
I'm good. I'm good. I mean, new year, new goals, same mindset. Let's get to it for sure. So for the people that don't know, like DJ NahFr, like the upbringing in the childhood, like where were you born, where were you raised?
So I was born and raised in Uptown DC. That is like it's so funny because I was just talking to somebody about how like I recently just moved from Uptown to Northeast, and it's like being from Uptown has been like a part of my identity for so long because I lived there my whole life. Like I lived in one house my whole life. My mom still lives there. So yeah, born and raised in DC, still live in DC. It's like a principal thing. If I'm gonna be in this area, I will never live like in Maryland or Virginia because I need to influence these elections and all the shit that's going on in like in my hometown. So yeah.
Okay. Elections impact.
Right.
Okay.
Like,
all right. That's all right.
It matters. It matters.
It does. It does. It does. I mean, cause I think that DC. Such a stable. I know a lot of people. The home of the go-go. Mumbo sauce or what have you. It sounds like already that it's a passionate place.
Yeah.
For yourself. So like the upbringing in being in DC, like going to school out there and everything like that too. Like how was that?
It's really interesting because I was also just talking about this because earlier this week there was a situation where two children got shot on the Metro bus, and it happened right at the bottom of my block, like where I grew up, where my mom still lives. And I used to be that 6 and 9-year-old on that same bus. It was like the 50 bus that goes to Tacoma Station. And I used to be on that bus, and that was something that was never like in my worldview. Like I was never having a concern of like gun violence at such a young age, and it's so different now. But growing up there, I mean, I loved it. Like I just, I didn't realize until I got to college just how privileged I was because I grew up in this area where I never had to think about being black. Like I never, of course, like all kids kind of deal with some type of bullying or like, just kids being a little mean, but it was never, I never had to like think about the fact that I was black or never had to be bullied about being black. And that was something that I really didn't appreciate until I got to college and I went to a PWI and I was exposed to like white people really for the first time because back in the day DC was very predominantly black. I mean, from elementary to middle, I didn't see any white people like in my schools. And then like I went to Wilson for 1 year, which is like a DC school, and that was like my first time seeing white people at school. But again, they were still a minority. Like they weren't a majority at the school. So I think I really had a privileged experience being able to grow up in DC and just have this really like rich black experience. And like I said, it wasn't until I got to be an adult and like talking to other black people, like let's say that grew up in Boston or something, like they dealt with racism as children. Like so that wasn't like a new experience for them. Like they always knew about that.
For sure. I think that is very, very important because I know, like, for myself, I mean, born in Prince George's County and just seeing that and navigating through it, like, on the outside looking in, it seems like, the DMV is just a significant area in from the arts, the entertainment to, the education and everything like that. So as you continue to navigate and things like that, what were some of those hobbies that you found at an early age?
At an early age, so it's really funny because I really wish that I like kept doing this, but when I was like towards the end of high school, we had like a Mac desktop computer, and I used to make videos like with the little like I learned how to do like iMovie, like just like chop and like edit videos and stuff like that, and I was doing that, and this was like 2007. So like I remember when YouTube came out. Like I was a ninth grader, and like that was when YouTube was first a thing. And there weren't like people making videos on there like that. Like it
Right.
was just little random videos or whatever. But there weren't like people that were like building an audience and stuff like that. So I would make these little videos and put them on Facebook. And I remember like people used to always like them, but I think like as I got to college, I looked back on those videos with like a sense of embarrassment. So I deleted them all, and I'm like kind of mad because like I kind of wish I could see them. But yeah, like back then I was just into like like computer stuff, and then also like writing. And I've always been a big music person. Like there's a lot of people. Like I just saw a friend from middle school last night. And he was like, I haven't seen him in a while. And he was like, yeah, like, I see what you're doing, and like, congratulations. And like, it made sense. And there's a lot of people that share that same sentiment that are like, it always made sense for you to be doing this. Like, it's definitely like your calling and stuff like that. So I think that's really validating and affirming.
Oh yeah, nah, for sure. Like I could definitely reflect. Like I know, like my younger self, like I love writing and everything like that. So when I'm in this space now, like people are like, nah, I'm not surprised. Like,
Yeah.
right, like this was gonna be something that you did anyway. So like, because I love journalism and writing and reporting and things like that. So this is kind of a way that you do it. You know what I mean? So as it continued with your hobbies and stuff like that, when did you fall in love with, or how did you find DJing?
So I always have had friends that were DJs. Just like even from I want to say like college up until right here right now. So I think initially like there was people around me that were like, oh yeah, like I'll teach you how to DJ. But then Bria, who I know has done this podcast also, during the pandemic, like we hadn't seen each other in a while. She was coming over to visit. And I didn't even know that she was like gonna bring her stuff, because she was definitely one of those people who was like, oh yeah, like I'll teach you or whatever. But this was years ago, and I'm thinking we're just linking up, like just catching up or whatever. But she actually brought like all her stuff with her, like her controller, her laptop, and like a speaker for us to use. And she gave me like my first experience of me actually doing it. And it was very like basic. Like she didn't go super in depth. She just was like, here's the software, here's the controller. The main idea is to just make sure the BPM matches or like something like that. And then from there, I just kind of was just like playing around with it. Like, she just kind of like sat down or whatever. And then like after that, I was like, oh yeah, like this is definitely me. Like I just immediately kind of picked it up. Like it was never, I think like when you try to do something new, a lot of us are kind of afraid of being bad. So it was like immediately, it's not like I was the best DJ in the world, but immediately it was sounding pretty good. Like it wasn't like, trash. So
Right.
I just went and purchased my own stuff after that, and just kind of taught myself everything else from there. Like, but I really appreciated like her taking that effort and bringing her stuff, and and I realized in that moment, like she's not gonna come bring her stuff every week or month, so I can do something that I want to do. I need to take this step to like invest in myself.
For sure. Yeah, shout out to Bree Mafia. That's like family to me. Like she's literally been like a pillar, and I just think that that's definitely dope and amazing. For her to even do that, and then of course definitely help, because I feel like that's how we build. This is how we grow, by helping each other.
Right.
So even from that standpoint, and like the notion of what it takes to be the DJ, like the name alone, like DJ NahFr, like how did that come about?
So and it's so funny that you brought that up, because I think that NahFr, like it was like people were saying it, but it didn't become what it is until like I feel like I made it a super thing. Like now, like I'll be scrolling through comments on Instagram and people be like NahFr, and I never used to see that. Like I would hear rappers like ad-lib it, but I would never see people like using it as a response or like a mood or like whatever.
Yeah.
But it really came about because I would always say that, like just like before it became such a universal thing. Like I was always saying that years ago, and like when I started DJing, I was like thinking super hard. I'm like, I really wanted my DJ name to be DJ Fuck With Me, but like I like corporate clients, like stuff like that. Like, you know, I didn't think that that would be the best route to go. So that's like my AKA. But yeah, I was like thinking real hard. I was like, what do I want my DJ name to be? And at the time, my Instagram name was But Not For Real. So I just was like, DJ Not For Real. Just take off the butt because I don't want to be DJ But Not For Real. That's a mouthful.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was like DJ Not For Real, and I feel like that's just like it really is my mood a lot of times. Like, you know, cause I be dead ass. Like people, sometimes people, you know, I feel like sometimes my delivery could be a little funny or whatever, but I need people to know like I'm serious. Like, no, for real. Like, yeah. So that's kind of how it came about.
That's what's up, though. I mean, I think that it's you know, very transparent. I think that's very authentic in yourself. You know, like, cause this is like, okay, no, like, not for real. Like, people need to take me serious. So,
Yeah.
like, it's not a game. So you are in the space. You start DJing. You start gigging. What was that first gig where you felt like, all right, this it. I ain't gonna look back. Like, I'm all in.
That's a good question. The first one that like made me feel like that. That's a tough question because right now I'm blanking on everything. Like what gig made me feel like that? I mean, when I DJed at the National Cannabis Festival, like I think that was one of those things that was like, okay, like I'm on the right path because I actually had 2 gigs at the National Cannabis Festival. And one of them I was like on this stage like where literally thousands of people had to go because they had to walk past this stage to get into the festival. So every person that was attending the festival had to walk past this area. And, you know, I was looking like, you know, there were people in line and stuff like that, and I was seeing like all the people that were like, you know, digging the vibes that I was providing, and there was like all these different photographers. Speaking of, I have never seen not one of those pictures, but there was mad photographers like coming. I guess they were with like the you know, like the organizers of the event or whatever, and I was like, oh wow, like this is like kind of cool. Like there's thousands of people here, and there's like photographers and stuff like that. So I think that was one of those gigs that really made me feel like, okay, like I'm going in the right direction.
For sure. And I think that, you know, kudos to that because, like, I know festivals are hard to land to, like, in a sense. So, as far as, like, just getting yourself out there and stuff like that, how is networking essential in all this? Because I know that when you are doing some networking and building and, you know, meeting people, like, how did you go about that?
So, that's also a good question. It's some people that I kind of already knew, and you know, they kind of like introduced me to people that they know. But you know, I think it's interesting that you brought this up also because networking is something that is so like vital to this, and it's something that I really need to get back into doing. Like I think one of the things I love about DJing is the fact that if I'm at an event or like a party and I'm DJing, I have a separate area to myself and I don't have to talk to people.
Right.
So if I'm networking, those are the times where like I can't like hide behind like me DJing, and I really like have to talk to people and initiate conversations. So you know, thankfully, like I said, I've always kind of known people that were DJing that were like kind of in the creative spaces and stuff like that. But I know that this year is like a time when I really need to like expand my network and get back into doing it. But it's kind of hard. It's like such an energy drain. Like, you know, just going out and like interacting with people you barely know, and you know, just kind of like not knowing what to expect. Like they're a stranger until they're not, and you know. But I know, like especially like in this world, networking is just like so important because you really can't grow like as a DJ and as far as the opportunities that you have without talking to new people.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely, and I think that goes like hand in hand with like anything because when I think of the DMV or just think of like networking in general, it's like okay, I know of the person or I know somebody that knew that person too or has been in that same vicinity. So I think that sometimes people be like it's a large place, but it's really not that large. It's just more so like, okay, well, there's a lot of people that are doing amazing and dope things. You just have to put yourself in those spaces where you can just connect and things like that. So I know, with these platforms and people, having different showcases and things like that. So, as far as the music scene in the DMV, like how have you gravitated towards it, or how do you currently feel about it?
So as far as the music scene in the DMV, I think that it's absolutely alive and well. I think there's different like pockets and like sections. Like I have a 16-year-old brother, and him as well as his peers, they listen to a lot of artists that are like local artists. But I also know of local artists, but a lot of the people that they're listening to, I've never heard of, and they have this really um, it's kind of like a universal sound. Like they have the same cadence and flow, like on the songs and stuff like that. And I think that it kind of concerns me, like that they use, because it's like the subject matter,
Right.
like what they're talking about, and then we look at like what's going on with the youth, like in our area. Like there's a lot of like crazy stuff going on, like violence and crime and stuff like that. But I think there's like another section of it, which is kind of like the people I know that have had the time to like really refine their sound and, not sound like all these other rappers that, the kids are listening to. Because there's people on this side that are like, they're rappers, but there's also like singers and, people that are doing like more experimental sounds and stuff like that. So I think those are the type of artists that I really like to amplify. And I have this event called No Filter that I do, and I only book women, like women DJs, women artists, and it's been really fun to do it because it has helped me kind of stay tapped into the ladies that are making music here. And I feel like I'm constantly like discovering people that I didn't really know of, and they're good. Like they're actually like really good. Like you can tell that they really care about what they're doing, their sound. There's like a love behind it. Like you can tell like this is like their baby. Like they care about it. So I think that the state of music in this area is definitely good. It's getting better, and as long as I can, I'm gonna continue to like play my part in like amplifying that, especially as it pertains to women specifically.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. I think that it's very vital to do. Shout out to the women out there in the DMV doing it. I think that when it comes to the music, I know that it's different pockets. Like you were saying earlier, like you got trap, you got conscious, you got people that's doing different things. And I think that with it, like a DMV flow or whatever it is, I feel like it's established. It's just pretty hard to identify because you got maybe multiple people doing the same thing or things like that. So sometimes I feel like we're slept on, but we started a lot of things. You know what I'm saying, from the fashion or like the style or whatever like that. Because I remember when there was like certain artists that came out, like what was it, like the Baby and like Stunner for Vegas, and like them being from like Carolina, and then the way that they was rapping, then one of my mans was like, oh, bro, like, oh, they rapping like people from here, and I was just like, yeah, but it's crazy, like, yeah, and it's just like they rapping because like that up exactly. So like some people look at it that way, and it's like the way that they dress and things like that, and I'm like, yeah, I mean we have a lot of influence, for sure, and I know like with the female artists in particular. And I'm glad that you're advocating for it, and I know you're not the only one. What I would like to see more of is, them being respected more in the space.
Absolutely.
Like, because, we have the DJs, it's a lane for everybody.
Right.
But I just feel like, all right, if you really tapped into what you're doing, then, like, give that person a chance. Or, like, let them go ahead and spin. Or, things like that. Because you all are the forefronts of it. Like, okay, if I'm an artist and I'm like, all right, I got a record that I want spun or something like that, I got to put it in your hands because you're the DJ, you break the record. But I think sometimes you all don't receive the just due that you guys do because people may look at y'all like, oh, no, they're women, like, they ain't got no say so, they don't got no pool, like, whatever. So I feel like, at times, you guys get discredited and don't get highlighted the way that you should for what you guys do, not just the notion of, oh, yeah, you're a woman.
Yeah, and I mean that's a big thing. That's a big part of why I allow the audience to totally decide what you're gonna play. Obviously, you want to make them happy, so you throw in some songs that you know they're gonna sing along. But for me, I truly believe that the DJ's job is to play new music, or even if it's not necessarily new, niche music or just like underexposed music. I think it's kind of crazy. Like, sometimes I might go to an event and catch a set or whatever, and I hear all the songs that I just heard on the radio coming in. Like, people already know these songs, and I think the job of the DJ is to sift through all of the music because let's be honest, like the amount of music that is coming out now is overwhelming, especially compared to when we were teenagers and children. Like, we really had to wait for music, and it was an experience, like going to buy an album versus like just streaming it now. It's kind of like it's so easy, like, for things to just get forgotten because the cycle of new music is just steady and constant. Every Friday you can go on whatever app you're using and you can see a bunch of new albums that just came out. So I really think it's important for DJs to stay on top of that, to be listening to new music, to be sifting through and picking out the songs that are good. Because I know for me, like when I listen to a DJ, I want to hear songs I don't know. I want to be having my Shazam out. Like, I know what I know, and so it's important. It is important to kind of mix it in a little bit and play some of that stuff that people know, just to kind of keep them engaged and entertained. But I think it's really important for DJs to kind of be breaking that new music. So I think I'm just kind of learning, like, it's a different experience when you go to an event and the crowd is controlling what the DJ is playing versus the DJ having the control over that crowd, and just kind of reading them and being able to pick out the newer songs in their repertoire that will resonate with that specific audience. I think that's the skill, and that's what really distinguishes a good DJ versus a okay DJ, or a karaoke DJ.
Karaoke DJ. That's funny. That's the first time I heard that term ever.
Okay, I'll coin that.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I think that it's interesting because I know, like, when you go to parties and stuff like that, I know, hearing the same records over and over and over again, it can be irritating. I know for myself, like, I do want to hear what's new, and that's why I said I think DJs have that luxury and that responsibility to break new records. Like, so pivoting back to the DMV scene where us being here and people are like, yo, my music's not being played, things like that, and just breaking out in different ways. What do you think are some of those frustrations that artists are kind of sort of feeling from that side?
Yeah, I think that there are probably a lot of artists that feel that way, especially when we think about like local radio. And I think there's a unique opportunity for local radio to highlight local music, and some of them do. Like, I know there's one radio station that has like that versus thing where people can submit their music, and it's like they go head to head, and whoever wins has a unique opportunity or what have you. But I think it's important for artists to seek it out, like seek those people out. Like, for instance, if I was an artist in this area, I would definitely be going out and networking and going to see DJs. If I heard them before and they're good, I'll specifically like check into what they're doing and pull up and shake their hand and introduce myself. And because I think it's just it's one thing to just say, hey, okay, I'm gonna go on this DJ's Instagram and email them a track. I mean, there's no guarantee that that can end up in their junk folder, that can end up in their trash. So it's really important to go out and shake people's hands and network in a real way versus just saying, hey, here's my song, like, can you play it? Because it's like, I don't know you. You know what I mean? Like, I have a lot going on in my email. Like, there's no guarantee I'm ever even going to hear this. But if you come out and you shake somebody's hand and you look them in their face, then it's like, okay, I remember them. Then it's like, you're more inclined to want to hear, wow, this person was a really nice in person. I really wonder what type of music that they're playing. So I think that the artists in this area are definitely experiencing like a frustration with like exposure, but I think that they aren't necessarily doing all they can on that front with the networking. And I think that you know, they should also ask the question as to why, you know, because I think there are some artists in the area that are not quite as refined as they could be. Um, and that's what sets them apart from just kind of having that buzz versus just like feeling like they're constantly not getting enough. And I think sometimes you gotta like look at the product that you're putting out and say, is this up to par? Is this quality? Is this, you know, good enough for this DJ to play, considering what this DJ does already play?
Right. No, I agree 100%. And I have a testimony to that because, like, even making music prior to doing this, like, I remember having a record, and I was working at Buffalo Wild Wings at the time, and Tony Reyes came in. God rest his soul. He came in. He was working for 95.5, and he just came in. You know, got some wings, and he was like, "Yeah, you know, if you rap or whatever like that, this is a show." So I'm like, "All right, cool." So I met him. Then he came back the following week. You know, got some wings because he always came. He was like a regular. And then I was like, cool. So then I invested. I did the show, and it was like a show from like 9 a.m. Like it was like 9 p.m. to like 2 a.m. in the morning. And like I went, you know, got tickets, whatever, for the homies and everything like that. They came and seen me perform. Everybody was rapping, and some people was rapping and rolling, rapping and rolling, rapping and rolling, rapping and rolling. I stayed from 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. Performed the song around probably like 1:45 in the morning, and stayed and saw everybody.
Yeah.
As I left, he had handed me a piece of paper, and he was like, I was like, what's this for? He's like, yeah, I'm gonna play your song on the radio. I was like, for real? He's like, yeah, I'm serious. He's like, yeah, because you waited, you saw everybody, and you performed, and you stayed the whole entire time. That's all I was looking for. I was looking for somebody just making it like, yeah, okay, bet you rap.
I'm gonna pull up right before I perform and then leave right after.
Yeah, so a lot of people, I think, you know, like you were saying, like hand in hand and understanding that, like, and just being ready for that opportunity and realizing the sacrifice of what you have to do.
Yeah.
What I could definitely say is like from the support notion of that DMV support and love, and when people are doing these shows, we have to start supporting each other and doing that too. Like, okay, if you make music, I can make music. Hey, look, we could collab. We could make a dope record. You know what I mean? And you never know where that could take you. As opposed to being like, oh yeah, I'm just doing my own thing. Oh yeah, you're doing your own thing. What time do you perform? Oh, I perform around this time. Oh, I don't know if I'm gonna be there because, you know what I'm saying, I don't perform until late. Like, we got to start being able to at least
have that genuine support.
Yeah, genuine support, because we want that support too. Like, you would want somebody to check out your set or something like that. You know, check
and that's
them out.
honestly one of my biggest pet peeves. Like, it really annoys me, like, when people are, like, DMing me and, like, hey, can you post this? Hey, can you like this? Hey, can you comment on this? Like, to me, the best way to get support is to give it. So, if you want me to like, repost, whatever it is, okay, come like some of my stuff. Come repost some of my stuff. And then I'm be like, oh, okay, they showing love. Like, let me show love back. Now, obviously, there are people that I'm the one that's initiating that support because I genuinely like what they're doing.
Right.
Or I genuinely appreciate what they're putting out. But I think it's too much of this, like, really self-absorbed kind of, like, culture with people nowadays. Just kind of thinking, like, hey, you know, repost my stuff, like my stuff, or whatever, and you're not handing out no likes or reposts. Like,
Right.
you know, it's like a symbiotic relationship. Like, you gotta give to get.
Nah, I definitely agree with that, and that's why I was saying, like, I know I be on Twitter too, and it's like Twitter is like a cool, weird space sometimes.
Yeah, it
but
is.
it's like
It is.
It's
Yeah.
cool, but like, so like, even for, you know, myself, like when I even say, like, I don't want to like forget anybody, I just be like, yeah, shout out to all the DMV, you know, content creators, you know, and it's like whatever you do, like shout out to everybody in the DMV, because everybody's still trying to make a way. So I feel like at times, you know, we can single people out. So like, even with y'all doing, you know, your DJ thing, I know so many other female DJs, you know, like yourself, you know, Bree Mafia, Trilla. What I love about y'all and what I've seen is like togetherness of, okay, cool, like, I may not have a gig, but I'm gonna go ahead and support her.
Right.
She may not have a gig, but we're gonna go and support her.
Mm-hmm.
Or like, we all on the show together, we know that it'll be dope, and it's just like that. But that support, where it's like, all right, man, I'm gonna go ahead and pull up, because I know that even with the DMV versus, like, Bree was DJing, but you pulled up, you know what I'm saying, to support her.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yo, that's that's easier for y'all. And like, no disrespect to the man when I say this, like, we gotta get it together.
Yeah,
I mean,
agree.
because it's like we gotta get it together with that. Because it's like we gotta make sure that we are able to support our homie and stuff like that. Like, it's not about I bet like you watching the game, where you watching the game at, where you watching the fight at, where you watching this at, this that and there. Like, we got to be able to do that, and I feel like it's easier for y'all to do it because y'all may be more genuine.
Yeah, and I think with men sometimes it's like, because there is just like, since the dawn of time, this like natural competition that just men feel, even if it's not really a competition, like they just kind of feel like that's what it is. And I think sometimes men look at it and say, well, this person, this other man having an opportunity is an opportunity that was taken away from me, or that I don't have because they have it, and they don't realize that that's not how you should look at it, because what's for you is going to be for you always. Like, nothing or no one can change that. And I think the women kind of like in the scene, we kind of get that, like, I'm going to big up and celebrate and support what you have going on, because that is for you.
Right.
And what's for me is something else, you know what I mean? And so I think that's like, one of the biggest differences between like men and women in the scene. And I think because, it is a male-dominated thing, it kind of creates this just general like crabs in a bucket. Like, I feel like that's something that's always said about this area, and it's so cliche and corny, but it is kind of like that energy of like holding each other back versus uplifting each other. It's like kind of like that animosity is easier for men than it is to like uplift each other for whatever reason.
No, I agree, and I think it's like pride and ego, and I know it's sometimes
Sure.
where I could just reflect and be like, oh yeah, being stuck in your own way, like not being told what to do, or like things like that. Because of course, things like that. But you have to be receptive and understand that okay, your time is gonna come. You guys just stay patient and keep. There's nothing wrong with rooting for somebody, because I feel like showing that love, like once again, like it's right there in the neck of the woods. It's right there in your neighborhood. So like you never know. You just have to continue to prepare yourself and stay ready for those opportunities. So even with that, like I know you also DJ'd at the National Opera as well, the Gaylord.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how was that? Like that's major to me. I'm like,
So first of all, because the Gaylord is so big, it wasn't like the whole Gaylord, but it was like it was a unique experience because it was like a kid thing.
Okay.
So it was like this event that they were doing like weekly, like leading up to Halloween, where they would like. First of all, I'd never been to the Gaylord before this, and I didn't realize it's like an ecosystem in there. Like it's like they always have stuff going on, like for the guests or whatever. So they had all these like different activities or whatever set up for the kids, and it was like this little party. And honestly, I mean, that was a really cool gig to me because first of all, the money was good, and it was like, I don't know, it was just like it's cool. Like I like doing stuff with the kids too. Like obviously, I mean, I prefer doing adult stuff, but like the kids stuff is really cool because they just really have this really pure energy, and it's like, if they vibing with you, you're doing all right. Because if they not vibing with you, they have no cut cards.
Yeah,
they don't have any problem like being like, mommy, this lady sucks. Like, you know what I mean? So like that was really cool, and they asked me to come back 2 times or something like that. Like I did 2 different dates there, and that was cool because it was like, yeah, they were like, the first time I did it was good, and I came back, and yeah, I love just having these unique opportunities and new things come about because as a DJ, I honestly think the mark of a good DJ is not even necessarily the mixing whatever skills. It's really about being adaptable and just kind of being able to I don't know, just like take any situation as it comes. Like,
being able to adapt, adjust, and like pivot accordingly. I bet if I gotta do that. Yeah,
like sometimes it's just like you really gotta do some like improv, like just being able to improv on the spot, like even dealing with technical issues or whatever. So I love having opportunities to just have a new experience. So that way, the next time I do a kid party, you know what I mean? Like I have some experience to pull from.
Right.
So yeah, I just welcome definitely more of that in 2023. Just things I've never done, because I think it's so easy to really just get in your comfort zone. And I'm a Taurus, so I'm like super. Comfort is key for me. But I think in 2023, I'm definitely getting more comfortable with being uncomfortable and just dealing with unfamiliar things, and because I always get through it.
Yeah,
It's not like
yeah.
a situation where it's like, oh damn, like my whole career is over. Like,
Right,
you
yeah.
know what I mean? I always get through it. I always gain something useful. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's definitely dope and vital because I think that when you are uncomfortable, you're like, okay, because sometimes you can be small-minded and things like that. And I know I found myself being like that, like, okay, I'm only gonna focus here. I don't want to. But then it's like, nah, everything on the outside, besides what you focusing on right now, you need to focus on that and just challenge yourself. So I like how you said that, and then just embracing everything. So even with that and how you've been able to. So, what is it that you would want to see more of, like in the area, just like moving forward?
Yeah, so I think one of the main things that I would like to see is just like men giving opportunities to women because they are kind of like the powers that be. Like even in considering like me doing the no filter event, there's always like the buck always stops with the man. So like as far as like securing a venue or something like that, at some point I'm going to have to get some type of approval or allowance from a man. Like it never fails. So I think I would just like to see more of that because as of now, like the men that do it, they treat it like they're doing something amazing, and it shouldn't be like that because you know, yeah, sure we are women, but at the end of the day, we're also good DJs. Like, and that's what it should be about more than anything. Like, just the fact that we are good DJs. And I had like posted this tweet that was like that had got like a lot of traction about like women being able to DJ in the clubs, and like men were just saying some problematic things, like just saying like, oh, like the girls only come to look good, and then it's like, okay, well, if we come to our gig looking a hot mess, we not gonna get respect either. So it's like, and me and someone else me and another DJ woman in this area, Bass, we were talking about that the other day, like saying how like men have it so easy, like they could just take a shower, throw on a sweatsuit, and go. But like we can't really show up like with our hair looking a mess, or without us being like looking on point. And so, but then it kind of turns into a negative stereotype, and it's like we can't win for losing. Like, so I think in this upcoming year, I would just like to see more of men sharing space with us. And also just more community, like just artists, DJs, all of that. Like I just want to see more like coming together, not even just on events, but just support, like just showing like what you were saying, like I'll show up to support artists doing what they're doing just because I like what they have going on, not because there's any benefit coming to me. So I think that's another big thing of just like moving with the genuine energy and not always looking for some gain, because it's not always about a personal gain. It's about connection and community sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. You took the, like I always say that. I always say community over competition. I always say that because I feel like it's more power collaboration, and also like even with that, and you were saying that, like I would love to see that we share, spaces because, like, okay, if we can't take a gig or something like that, all right, we can call somebody else. You know what I'm saying? To take the gig and not really feel bad about it, because guess what? Like you may be booked for the day, and it's like, dang, all right, well, I wanted you to do it. Do you know somebody? Cool, and not feeling bad for referring somebody else, because it's like it's not gonna hurt at all. Like, but you don't necessarily be like, oh yeah, well, you didn't get the gig, or the only reason why you got the gig is because of me, and I, we don't necessarily need to do all that because it's like, nah, like my schedule was booked. They wanted to know, so I was able to refer someone else, and I generally am happy that you got the gig, or I'm generally happy that this happened for you, because it's like it can't necessarily be like, oh yeah, that's supposed to be me. You don't know what's in the cards for you, because guess what, God's still working. So like,
it can't be, if it's for you, it can't be taken.
Yeah, so I think that that's also important as well. So even from like small room gigs and like big room gigs, can you like depict the two? Like if there's a significant difference, like as you're DJing, like what to be aware of? Because like I know from us, like the consumer standpoint, we're going there to, rather it be like a lounge or something like that, and having a good time, and just listening to music. Is there like a big difference?
I would say that for me, I really enjoy like the energy like behind the smaller things because it's like a quality over quantity thing. So usually in those types of environments, there's like a real genuine energy and a deeper connectedness because there are not a huge amount of people. So like I can see every person and I can like feel a certain energy from every person and I really appreciate those experiences because I think in those rooms you really have the ability to try things like versus in a bigger room you kind of are like okay like I don't want to do nothing too crazy or go a little too far off because it might fall flat and there's more people to please versus like when you're in a smaller situation I think it's also like lower pressure like people just aren't tripping as much or aren't as critical like they're just really just looking to vibe like so I think there's like benefits of both um, but there's definitely a major difference between the two and like I said I think when you're in those bigger rooms you're kind of just doing stuff that goes together like your tried and trues because you don't want to mess up or feel like that criticism coming from a lot of people. It's one thing when you're in a small room and it's a couple of people or maybe one or two people not messing with it or shoot maybe all of them not messing with it but all right let's just go ahead and shift to something else and we can move past it but when you're in a bigger room then they're kind of like more like holding on like oh nah they suck or like oh let's go so I think that's the main difference. It's just like in a smaller room, you really have that ability to kind of try new things and maybe discover some type of transition or, whatever it is that you can take to that bigger room because you were able to take that chance. Like
Yeah, for sure. And I know that I think it was either earlier last year or the year before last. I know our artist Corey LeRae was going through that backlash. You know what I'm saying? Like I know.
Taurus too. She a Taurus too.
Yeah, so she was going through it. That's one of my favorite female artists out there. But it's not necessarily the music, it's just the way that she carries herself.
Yeah.
Like her swag, her energy, her interviews, very intellectual for sure. But I know that, I think she was on Rolling Loud, and I don't know if she had sound issues or whatever like that, but then people were not pleased with her performance and things of that nature.
Just
off of one, hiccup, per se. But it was just like, to me, it's like, okay, you live and you learn, and she's still, a phenomenal artist. She's still dope. She's still making strides because, she said, wait, she's getting bigger from that moment. So I just think that, we have to at least give, people grace because, I mean, hey, we would want that same exact grace too. If it was like us and we made a mistake, like, let's just be real, like, we could give each other grace off of that as well. So, like, I guess, what is your slept on genre of music that you play?
Honestly, like I really like alternative, like psychedelic rock, like type music. I mean, I'm a big like rap girl, like trap music, and like if you come, like if I'm DJing, you're always gonna hear that. But I love to like mix some of that in, and it's one of those things that's like it doesn't necessarily resonate with every crowd unless you play some of those like more well known, like Tame Impala, like tracks. But I think that it's like especially here, like in our community, because I think in the larger world, sure, there's like people that appreciate it, but I think like in our community, like here in this area, that's one of those genres that's kind of like fake slept on, if you will. And it's one that just like I really enjoy because I'm a big lyrics person. So like a lot of times, like when I'm DJing, I think people will notice like I'll run a certain bar back a couple of times. Like, did y'all hear that? I just want to make sure y'all heard that because that was a bar. Like, so I'll like run certain things back, and I'll kind of see people be like, oh, like I could kind of see it like resonating because I think sometimes like especially in an event or like a party or whatever, it's easy to like not pay attention to the lyrics, like especially if you don't know the song.
Right.
So unless it's one of those karaoke tracks that everybody sings along to, it's really easy to just kind of be focused more on the beat and maybe the chorus, but not really the content of the lyrics. So yeah, I would say that's one of those that's kind of slept on. And even like I feel like this is gonna be one of those ones that's like this kind of far off, but like country pop music too. Like I kind of like. I think there's like some really good artists and songs like within that genre, but it is like kind of niche, like especially for this area where we're pretty black around here.
Yeah, not for real. I think it's dope. I think I don't know. I feel like Afrobeat is slept on. I think it's now rising.
No way.
I think it's
Because
now rising.
It's
like it was like for me, I was already hip to it,
yeah,
right? But I think that from like everybody else just like
the biggest
catching
parties,
on to it.
The
now.
biggest parties in this area are Afrobeats, piano, like type music, like. So I feel like like especially like maybe say like 5 years ago or maybe even 4 years ago, I feel like it didn't have the like mainstream appeal that it has now. But there's a lot of people that come from that continent and especially that live here. And even thinking about concerts, I went to see Burna Boy at Fillmore.
I'm jealous.
Burna Boy is now at Capital One Arena, and that took a year or two. So like. It's definitely becoming a really big sound, especially in this area. Like there's so many different like pockets of like African communities, like Ethiopian, Nigerian, Ghanaian, stuff like that. So yeah, like I think that I see what you mean about like it was. I feel like a couple of years ago,
it
didn't have the same type of appeal now, but now it's like making its way to like mainstream.
Yeah, for sure. And the food is good too. I ain't gonna lie. Like, you know what I'm saying, you definitely gotta get you that jollof rice and that suya for real.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying, shout out to my good guys for real. Love suya for real. But it's just interesting to see how it all like intertwines and stuff like that. And it's like I feel like with the DMV, like the platforms that we have, from the curators that throw shows like yourself and others, I just want to tell y'all to just keep going, because like it's dope to have people that throw showcases and put people on. Like you still need the notion of artist development and making sure that everything is straight. You know what I'm saying? And we don't do that enough, because a lot of people like, oh yeah, well if you're not performing at the Film or Howard Theater, then you ain't got no show. But it's like these ain't the only venues that you can perform at.
And you gotta start somewhere.
You got Songbird, you got all these places, and I think that people want those, big stages, but you still have to prepare yourself for those moments. So, open mics is still a thing, things like that. So I feel like that's definitely dope. But you were also acknowledged on Made in the DMV.
Oh yeah, I did see that.
So like, how did you feel about that? Like, was that like a, whew, finally somebody seen me? Or was it like a, all right, cool, let me just keep working?
It was like, well, the last year that they did it too, I was also on there. And this year, it was one of those things that was like, yeah, like, let me keep working for sure. Because it's like, that's dope in itself. But I think ultimately I definitely want to expand and, kind of get recognition from platforms that are kind of maybe looking at the entire country versus, just our area. So I definitely think it's dope, but I also know that there's like some DJs that weren't included that absolutely are making waves and doing big things. And I think it's important to remember that that platform, it is dope to get the recognition from them, but it's not the only mark of doing good or making moves. Like I think I think that anybody that wasn't included shouldn't get down on themselves about it or whatever. Just like how I feel even with the recognition, like let me keep working. That's exactly how anyone that's not on there should feel. Like let me just keep working, because I feel like there's a lot of worthwhile people that got left off, and I know like some people kind of felt a way about it, and I just want people to know, like, that's not the only mark of doing well.
Nah, for sure, I agree. Because, I mean, like, we can look at lists all the time and be like, man, I ain't made the list.
Yeah.
Nah, man, bump this joint. Like, nah, man.
Yeah.
Like, nah, man, I don't care about, like, what you mean. Like, but you can't really trip over that, because guess what? Like, it's bigger and better. And you just got to realize, like, sometimes you probably weren't meant to be on that list. But it's okay.
What's for you is not, can't be taken.
For sure. And I love that you keep repeating that too, because I think people need to know that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
I
some people don't really understand that. So, with you gigging and doing all of this stuff, what does self care look like for you?
Self care for me, huh? Doing nothing. Like honestly, like that's I just like being able to do nothing. But aside from that, I mean, I do enjoy cannabis and just sitting back with a good strain, relaxing, watching something, spending time at home, like with my partner and my pets, like that. I feel like that's kind of like what refills my energy levels, and also like getting my hair and nails done, which is like that's a given basically as a woman. But yeah, and like I recently moved to a new spot for the first time in over 5 years. I lived in my old spot for like 5 years, probably like going on 5.5. And I have this amazing like view now, like this nice balcony. So like I really like to just go out there and just look like this, and especially when the sun is shining, like I feel like my vitamin D levels get to rising, like so yeah, that's my self care.
That's great. That's great. I'm glad that you have been able to do these, transitions and things like that. These transformations, per se. Yeah, I think. Yeah, for me, it's just like stepping away from social media. It's just like taking a walk.
Yeah.
That's what it could look like. Watching my favorite movie or something like that, or a TV show or something like that. But yeah, it's just really unwinding and like journaling.
Yeah.
I feel like that's myself.
Every day.
Yeah, every day. Big on journaling, big on like affirmations and like a to-do list. Cause I feel like when you tell yourself like what you're gonna do or just like reflect and things like that, just take moments of that. Like you don't necessarily have to feel like you're on go all the time. And I know that that's the type of person I am. I always feel like I have to be on go or I have to do something. But it's like nah, bro, chill. Like you alright.
Yeah.
So I guess what is that motivation that you would give to somebody that is like lost, confused, not knowing what to do?
What I would say to someone in that type of situation is to just quiet the noise of influences of society. Like, there are many industries that are built on our self-doubt. Like, there are people who make money on other people doubting themselves and not feeling confident in themselves. So I think it's important to quiet your mind of outside influences, be it society, be it family, be it social media, be it friends, and you really have to tap into your own self and your own mind and say, what do I want? What does success look like for me? Because I think there is this energy of just like material wealth being the mark of success, and I think that is toxic, and I honestly believe like when that's what you focus on, it's really hard to find happiness in anything that you do. But if you find other motivations, like just say, hey, I want to, like for me, I just want to bring music to the world. Like that's what I want to do. I love music. I love sharing music. And I'm never the type of person that's like, oh, I don't want to tell somebody what song it is, or I want to hide it or whatever. But that's my motivation, and the money comes, just naturally with that. But money was never my main motivation for DJing or anything like that. So I think it's just important for someone in that situation to find motivation outside of money. Like, capitalism is a really, I really think it's like so toxic, and it's like, it's crazy how much people their identities are shaped by their career or whatever they do for work. And like I'll overhear conversations from people, like they're trying to have a good time, unwind, relax, whatever, connect, and it's so much focus on what people do for money. Like it is such a big part of a lot of people's identities, and that's just so lame to me, because that's the least interesting thing about a person to me. So I think that if they're feeling lost or whatever, they just got to tap in to them. They are the source, you know what I mean? So just figure out what success looks like for you and what you want your future to look like without focusing on money or what society is saying or what your family is saying. What does success look like for you? For me, success looks like being able to wake up whenever I want and in that sense, I'm very successful. Like,
Yeah, so.
yeah, so, you know.
Yeah, I think we all would be off that notion, right? Yeah, for
Right.
sure. I think that, you know, it's okay to make mistakes. I think a lot of us fear them,
Yeah.
fear them so much that, you know, we're trying to chase perfection. I know, like myself, like it's like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do anything wrong, but it's like, yo, relax. Like you're not perfect, but
Yeah.
you're still worth it, and it's like it's okay because there's beauty in the mistakes. Like
Yeah.
crayons break, you still color. Pencils break, you still use them. Erasers are used. You know, a lot of people using computers control all delete things necessary, things like that. So it's just like different things that we can use, and I think with social media, especially for, you know, not only ourselves, but like the youth as well, and how it's being used. Like, you know, you are dope, you are vibe, you are amazing, so you don't necessarily need the validation from the internet.